Today we're gonna make these healthy chocolate-covered raspberry chia bites. They're packed with fiber and antioxidants. They're low in sugar, so they're a perfect treat to keep on hand for when you want something sweet but also want to stay healthy. We're gonna start by adding 1 cup of raspberries to our bowl. You're gonna wanna make sure you've washed your raspberries and then given them a little bit of time to dry. If your raspberries are still wet while making this recipe, it might make them a little too watery, so you wanna make sure they're nice and dry. So now I'm gonna take a fork and I'm just gonna mash up all of the raspberries. So I'm just pressing down with my fork to mash all of the raspberries until they become gem-like consistency. So you want to keep mashing until you reach this consistency. This is about what you want it to look like. Now I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of chia seeds. These are full of fiber, which is really great for your gut. They'll also help to keep you full for longer, so this becomes a more satiating snack. So I'm adding in 2 tablespoons of the chia seeds. This part is totally optional, but I'm also gonna add a little drizzle of honey just to add some extra sweetness. You could also use maple syrup or your preferred sweetener, or you can just totally leave out the sweetener, whatever you prefer. But if you want to keep this recipe vegan, you can use something like maple syrup. So now I'm just going to mix this all together until it is fully combined. And then we're gonna let it sit for about 15 minutes because those chia seeds will really help the raspberries to thicken up, because the chia seeds will really absorb some of that moisture from the raspberries. So it will make it into like a thicker jam consistency. So just stir that up really well. I'm grabbing my little spatula just to make sure I get all of the chia seeds from the side. So this looks about perfect. And like I said, we're gonna let it sit for about 15 minutes to let it thicken up just a little bit. All right, so this sat for a few minutes, and as you can see, it's already quite a bit thicker. So this is about the consistency that you're going for. Now I have a plate and I'm just gonna place a piece of parchment paper over top so that nothing sticks. And I'm just gonna take spoonfuls of our raspberry mixture and place it onto the plate. So I'm just taking 1 big spoonful for each and placing it onto the parchment paper. So I'm gonna make about 5 bites. You could make them a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger depending on what you prefer, but I'm gonna make 5. Now I'm just gonna take my spoon and gently kind of flatten these out so that they're more of a circular shape. So I'm just going around the edges with my spoon to kind of smooth it out and make them look a little bit more pretty. Have you guys ever heard of those true fruit bites? They're like a frozen fruit and they're dipped in chocolate, and sometimes they're dipped in white chocolate and dark chocolate. And they are so good. So this is kind of my version of them, but these are even healthier and they're obviously less expensive. Those are pretty expensive, so these are going to be a lot more affordable, and I think they're gonna taste even better. So again, I'm just gently kind of forming these into kind of like an oval shape and just kind of smoothing out the edges. These are gonna be so good. They're gonna be packed with fiber from both the berries and the chia seeds, antioxidants from the berries, and then the dark chocolate. So these are the perfect healthier treat when you're craving something sweet, but you still wanna be healthy. So here are my dollops of the raspberry chia mixture. This is about what you want them to look like. And now I'm just gonna stick them in the freezer to set before we dip them in some chocolate. Our raspberry chia bites are about ready, so now I'm gonna melt some chocolate. So I'm just taking a 1/2 cup of chocolate chips and about a teaspoon of coconut oil. I always add coconut oil to my chocolate chips when I'm melting chocolate because it just makes the consistency a little bit better for when we're gonna dip something into it. It makes it a little bit thinner. Now I'm just gonna pop this in the microwave for 30 seconds, give it a stir, and then microwave for another 30 seconds until the chocolate is completely melted. I always say you wanna be really careful with chocolate because you do not want it to burn. It does not taste good. Trust me, I've done it many times before, and I'm always so mad that I wasted all my chocolate chips. All right, the chocolate is fully melted. See how it is just perfectly silky smooth? The coconut oil really helps with that. If you're not a big fan of coconut, you could use refined coconut oil, which has no coconut flavor, or you could also use something like melted butter. Okay, so I took my raspberry chia bites out of the freezer, and this is what they look like, and they just pop perfectly right off of our parchment paper. So I'm gonna take each chia bite and just dip it into the melted chocolate, give it a little toss so that it's fully coated, and then put it back onto my plate. And I'm gonna repeat this with each Chia bite. I almost forgot to note, I did add a little bit more chocolate chips just because after I melted them, I realized it might not be enough chocolate for all of the Chia bites. So I added a few more chocolate chips. So I'm just dipping each one into the melted chocolate. And then I like to kind of scrape it on the side of the bowl just to get any excess chocolate off. Before these completely set, I'm also gonna sprinkle them with just a little bit of sea salt. I always love sea salt with all of my chocolate. I'm a big sweet and salty fan. And this looks like we are going to have just enough chocolate for all of our Chia bites. All right, last one going into the chocolate. All right, now these are gonna go back into the freezer, probably just for 10 to 15 minutes until they're completely set, and then we can dig in. All right, time for the taste test. These turned out so good. They literally melt in your mouth and they're just the right amount of sweetness.